soul to me in every endeavor that I've been stepping out in and trying on and figuring out. And she has been a constant support, and she is one of the kindest people and most loving people I've ever met. And so I just want to welcome her here, and we are talking about some deep, real stuff today. So please help me welcome Foxy Jackson.
Yay! For whomever she was speaking about. Oh my gosh. What a warm introduction, Kira. I'm like, who is she talking about? Because it can't be me.
Yes, it's you. Yes, it's you. And those of you who are popping on right now, please say in the comments, say hi to us. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to ask questions. So please let us know you are here and with us. Say hi.
Absolutely.
Foxy, tell us about you.
So forgive me as I fan because I'm doing that Marilyn Monroe thing, you know, where the hair blows and the Beyonce and all that because it's hot. I've been setting up for this, and to be honest with you all, I am very I'm having a menopausal moment, I believe, because I'm a little perspiring. I said I was going to get dolled up. I got dolled up, but it was a very difficult process to do that and stay cool.
I hear you.
Oh man. So anyways, my name is Foxy, and I am the founder of I Speak Foxy, which is a nonprofit organization. And what I do is I have merged my passion, which is healing from sexual assault, with what I am professionally, which is a nurse. So I just found out this new term they have. It's called community health nurse. So I'm a community health nurse because I am seeking to heal everyone in the community. And that community is those who have experienced trauma. Primarily, our focus is on sexual assault traumas and interpersonal violence traumas. And so because of the wide band of reach for sexual assault and domestic violence, that includes everyone. So either you have experienced it, or you know someone who has experienced it, or you have worked with someone who has experienced it, or spoken to someone who has experienced those things. We are everywhere. And I say we because I am one of those too. I am one who has experienced sexual assault. I have experienced interpersonal violence. I have experienced what is termed domestic violence. And I have experienced mental abuse. And I am still here sitting before you with this smile on my face because I'm so excited about those experiences. And I know you're wondering, maybe she made a mistake there, but I didn't. Yes, she must have made a mistake to say that she is excited about having those experiences because they're traumatic and they're trauma and they're considered negative experiences. However, what we're going to talk about today is how to transform those traumas into wellness. And to do that, we'll talk about why your trauma and how your trauma was meant to be. And if you have a pen and paper, it would be very, very useful because I'm going to give you some acronyms that you'll want to write down. If you have any questions, please type them for me so that Kira can see them or I can see them when I look at one of these many cameras that are going right now. I'm not seeing people or ghosts. They're actually cameras of people that are connected to other people that are all around me, okay? So put your comments in there, put your questions in there so that when I pause for questions or poll for questions, then we can answer some of those. If I'm not able to answer them on this live, I will get to them afterwards. I will either inbox or post in the place that you've made the comment. Okay, so.
I'm going to let you take it away. I'm going to hop off here so I can manage the background.
Okay.
And, I'm so excited for this talk.
Me too. Mwah. Alrighty, so first we're going to talk about trauma. What is trauma? everybody has their own opinion of what trauma is. So if you're online somewhere, just type in there what your description or your definition of trauma is. What does that mean when I say trauma? This big word where it has to be a broken bone or a broken arm or a traumatic event where you had this bad car wreck, or you had a traumatic event and someone beat you within inches or moments of your life. What is trauma to you? How do you define trauma? And I'll pause just a little bit there because in a moment I'm going to read what the American Psychological Association defines as trauma, or their definition of trauma. I see one, it says shocking. It is very shocking. It's like, oh my gosh, what just happened? So trauma can be very shocking. Anyone else have any definitions of trauma? I feel like I'm looking for ghosts or something. But anyone else have any definitions of trauma? Okay, I don't see anyone typing yet. So I'm going to go ahead and read pain and fear, PTSD. Yes, I'm very familiar with those three, especially the pain, the fear, and the PTSD. In fact, I have experienced all three of those and some more of those things. The American Psychological Association says that trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like an accident, rape, or natural disaster. Immediately after the event, shock and denial are typical. Longer-term reactions include unpredictable emotions, flashbacks, strained relationships, and even physical symptoms like headaches or nausea. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about when you look at that definition are examples of trauma, because many times we judge our trauma based upon what someone else has defined trauma as. For example, trauma 911. So all the people on there are having these traumas and it's life or death. They are having a near-death moment. They have mangled a limb or broken a bone or gashed their head open. It's all these major types of trauma. In relationships, the woman has been stabbed 15 times, or the man was shot in the head by his ex-girlfriend, or the girl was pushed down the stairs and she lost her baby. These are like huge traumatic events. So then when we have a different type of trauma, like the death of a loved one who was aged, a great-grandmother or grandmother or mother, when we have traumas like our relationship is emotionally abusive, we have a tendency to judge those traumas as not worthy of being called a trauma. However, the body recognizes it as a trauma and treats it as such, because a trauma causes stress in the body. It doesn't matter how big it is considered or how small. And I'm saying these things because I want everyone to get to a point of understanding there are no gauges when it comes to trauma. There's no ruler that you can lay down and say, well, the trauma is it's only 1 inch long, or it's only 12 inches long, or it's only worthy of 2 months of healing, or it's only worthy of 3 years of healing. Trauma is individual, and each individual must heal from that trauma in their own way. For example, my son, my very, very oldest son, died from a skateboarding accident when he was 12. He was actually out of town with his other family when I got the phone call that he had passed away. How I handled that trauma may be very different than how I handle the trauma of being sexually assaulted by a husband. For me, there's no weight. However, my ideals of death and what death means. For me, death is a new beginning. Death means that you've done all that you needed to do in this life, and now it's time to go on to the next life. So my ideals surrounding death are more peaceful. They're more gentle. They're more of a release. I am better able to cope with death than I can maybe a sexual assault. So for me, the trauma of a sexual assault is more devastating to my body, my mind, and my soul than the loss of my child. For the next person, that may not be true. They may not have that same ideal. The death of a child may put them in a state of depression and anxiety for the rest of their lives. It may cause their heart to become enlarged, or their heart to attack and say we're having a myocardial infarction or a heart attack. It may cause their blood pressure to rise and their brain to not be able to handle it and they have a stroke. It may cause them to have seizures. It may cause them to not be able to digest that moment, and then they begin to have ulcers, or they have Crohn's disease or digestive diseases where they're constantly constipated, or they have bouts between constipation and diarrhea. And I say those things because there is a definite connection between your body and your mind, between your body and your soul. It is all connected. They cannot be separated. You can't separate your body from your soul because it can't survive without that energy. So they have to be together in order for us to have this life's experience. All trauma is different. Each person deals or copes with trauma in a different way. But each trauma affects the body because it is a stress. And what happens when we do not heal those traumas, and when I say heal, I understand that it is an ongoing process. It is not something where you heal today and it's completely over. It's not something you can take antibiotics for and then never have to worry about it again. It's not an infection, it's a wound. And wounds, for those who know about wound care, once you have a wound that is very deep and that wound heals, the tissue that is replaced, that is filling in those deep craters of that wound, that tissue is always sensitive, always sensitive. And it's always easy to reopen that wound and have it go even deeper than it was the first time. If you don't uncover that wound, the inside will begin to die, and that's what we call necrosis. It dies and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And although it looks perfectly fine on the outside, inside it's causing damage. And it can get so deep that it will begin to get into your bloodstream. And that's what we call sepsis. Now, you've just had a whole medical class right there. I know that you didn't come here for that, but it is all relative. Because when we have traumas within us and we fail to look at those traumas and heal those traumas and do the work that's necessary for those traumas, we end up having that trauma get deeper and deeper and deeper, and it causes more damage to our bodies. It causes more damage to our minds. It causes more damage to our mental abilities, our emotional body, our spiritual body. It flows over into our work. It flows over into our families, into our other relationships. Unhealed trauma can even flow over into the next generation. This is why it is so important for you to be here today listening to this session on Voices of Wisdom. Trauma will go from not just you, but it will flow into everything around you. And it damages your body and it robs you of wellness. And we're going to get to wellness in just a bit. So, what are some things that trauma looks like when it manifests and when it's not completely dealt with? It can be depression. It can be anxiety. It can be staying in abusive relationships. It can be unhealed physical ailments, constant cold sores, constant colds and flu, a lowered immune system. All of these, it can even be substance abuse, drugs, alcohol. And I know many people look at drug addicts and they are disgusted because how could you do that? And how could you get hooked on drugs? And I could never do that. I challenge you to look past that addiction and look at what are they trying to run from? What are they trying to escape? What trauma happened that made them feel like they needed to escape? That is called love. And we'll get to that in a little bit too. So we've talked about examples of trauma. We've talked about definitions of trauma. We've talked about what trauma looks like, what trauma does to the body. And now I want you to write down this acronym. And the acronym is for the word trauma. That's TRAUMA. Because now that we've talked about different traumas, now that we've talked about how they affect our body, we've talked about trauma as an analogy to an unhealed wound, we're going to define trauma with an acronym. And that acronym, the T stands for terrorizing. The R stands for reflections. The A stands for almost. The U is unimaginable. The M is manifestations. And the A is agony. So it's terrorizing reflections of almost unimaginable manifestations of agony. And agony is suffering. When we go through a trauma, it is a terrorizing event. It is agony. When we go through it and we don't heal it or we don't understand it, it becomes unimaginable. It becomes a reflection of that over and over and over again. I have a friend who lost her daughter, and it was a shooting. And instead of, well, I won't say instead of, but her way of dealing with that is to constantly remember her daughter as being someone who was shot and killed and taken away from her. I did the same thing with my second husband. My second husband drowned. And for a long time, every time I would think of him, I would think of him scrambling to get from the bottom of this pond of the water. I would think of how the manhole was sucking him down as he was trying to climb out of this water. I would think of the terror, the agony that he must have experienced, not being able to get a breath. I would think of the things that may have gone through his mind as he was trying to scramble out towards air that was just within reach. And I would hold him in that moment of agony, because that's the only way I could think of him, was in that moment of agony. And one day I was sitting with two of my friends, and that ex-husband showed up, and in spirit. He showed up in spirit, and the friend that was sitting across from me had never met my husband. I had never met him, never known anything about him. And she asked me about someone in spirit who was riding a motorcycle. And of course, he was the first person I thought of, him riding a motorcycle. And she said, he wants to ride his motorcycle. And I began to cry because I had kept him and myself in that agony. I had constantly reflected upon that one moment in life, that moment of him dying, and I had held him and my memories of him in that one moment. And when I allowed myself to release that moment, I allowed myself to birth new energy into that moment. I was able to envision him riding his motorcycle in the next life. I was able to remember him smiling and playing basketball and joking and us having fun and going fishing and me being on the back of that motorcycle scared for my life. I was able to remember the better moments. And so I was able to hold him in happiness. And when I did that, I began to feel wellness enter my body. And that's where we're going to go next. We're going to go to wellness. What is wellness? Type in your little answers, and we will compare those to the definition that the National Wellness Institute has created for wellness. What is wellness? And as you're typing that, if you have any other questions that you want to post in there, Kira, if you see any other questions that I can answer in this moment, that would be much appreciated. If there are questions, we'll move on in a little moment. I can't hear you.
Yeah, that's it. So I love this. This is incredible. I mean, I could really feel it when you spoke about that transformation that you had, and bringing in the calling in the new energy of that memory of really the truth
Right.
of it. Right. Yeah. That is incredible. Some people are saying not being in pain.
As
the answer
wellness.
is wellness.
Okay.
Peace of mind.
Yes.
Wellness is peace again.
Yes.
There's just so much. There's so much to this, and I'm so glad that you're tackling this work because it is so vital. It's so important. Mm-hmm. Just like you were mentioning. So you were talking about the connection, basically the mind-body connection as it relates to trauma and how the long-term effects are. Yes. Tell me a little bit about what you have maybe seen where you're like, yes, they had this trauma, and these were some of the long-term results, or even things that you've seen yourself.
Yes. So one of the it's funny now, but one of the things that I used to do is I used to always remember the negative things that were said to me when I was younger. And not that I've gotten past them, okay? So we won't get that misunderstanding because some of them still pop up. But some of the negative things that were said to me, I would dwell on those, and it would cause me such depression because those were traumatic for me. I would dwell on the loss of my father, the loss of a relationship with my mother and other family members. And that would cause me to be depressed. And when you're depressed, you don't want to do anything. You don't eat the right foods. You want to snack. And the more snacks you get, the more sugar, the worse your body feels. It's just like drinking alcohol. If you drink alcohol because you're depressed, it only makes you more depressed because it's a downer. And so what I began to see in my body was a lot of digestion issues. I had issues with constipation, and those weren't healed until I began to see myself and understand how this trauma is affecting my body, and using that knowledge to bring myself into a state of wellness, which meant that I had to increase my magnesium levels, because when you go through stress, it lowers your magnesium levels. And as a result, once I start to increase my magnesium levels, I'm not as depressed. And I said as depressed because I do still have moments, okay? And I don't have the constipation, but I've learned to listen to my body. So even though I don't recognize something as, oh my God, this is a stressful moment, my body will begin to respond the same way as it did when I was in those moments, as a little aha, hey, here's a notice. I'm putting a sticky note up here. You're getting stressed out. You need to calm down. And then I'll recognize and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm getting stressed out. I didn't even know, but once you start to enter this mode of wellness, you begin to listen to your body. You begin to listen to your intuition about your body and about different experiences that you're having. And you learn, because it's a learning process, to do those things that are difficult in order to do those things that are necessary. And that's been a really huge thing for me, is being able to do those things that are difficult in order to do those things that are necessary. So,
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lyric is saying, for wellness, taking care of your complete well-being, mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally.
Yes.
And then Nancy is also saying, thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Taking care of everything. Yes. And I'm so glad that people are saying, because every comment has been pretty much around the same thing when it comes to wellness. Many people, when they say, how are you? You say, I'm well, or I'm fine. Then their definition of well means without illness, or without any diseases, or without any disorders. That's not wellness. That's health. Now, if I say, how's your health? Then you can tell me, oh, I got a headache, my butt hurts, my leg hurts, my back hurts, my stomach ain't doing too good. I mean, I sound like I'm on life reading that God-forsaken letter that came from the family. My brother died, my mama died, the dog has died, and little boo-boo got cancer, like all these different things, that's health. That's health. Wellness is, how do you deal with all of that? How do you deal with these terrorizing reflections of almost unimaginable manifestations of agony? That's how we get to wellness. And then that gets us to our acronym of B. B-E. Your trauma was meant to be. How ass backwards is that?
Love you.
So, if you write down the acronym, the definition for B, it means to birth energy. It means to birth energy. Your trauma was meant to birth energy. When you birth something, you are merging the physical with the spiritual. You are putting that connection together. A woman births babies. And in order to birth that baby stays inside of her for a number of months to develop. And then when it comes out and the baby takes its first breath, that is a complete merge of the physical body with the spiritual being. That soul now is living inside of that little bitty body so that we can nourish that little bitty body so that it can take care of itself one day. So birthing energy means that we are going to use this trauma and we're going to tackle the understandings of that trauma, the lessons of that trauma. Not that, oh, he sexually assaulted me, so I got to learn my lesson. That's not it. That's not it. We're going to raise our little vibrations a little bit higher than that. We're going to come up here a little bit above the head. We're not going to think about this cognitively. No one's teaching anyone a lesson, like for punishment. These are things that we're supposed to learn so that we can move from this moment in our soul's progression to the next moment in our soul's progression. I'm going to use one example, and then we'll talk about different ways that that wellness can show up in our lives. So
okay, I'm gonna pop off so you get.
Okay.
All right. If I see more questions, I'll
okay. All right. So one of the things that my mom used to tell me when I was younger, living at home, she would say, you have a lot of book sense, but you don't have any common sense. And that would really hurt my feelings. That is obviously something that stuck with me because I'm in my 40s now. And she said that when I wasn't even a teenager, or maybe I was a teenager. But because I had straight A's in school, that was where that comment came from, was that I had all of this book sense and no common sense. And common sense is what is defined, well, I'll get to that. So I had all this book sense and no common sense. And that was my trauma. And as such, it showed up in my life as depression. I was anxious when it came to doing new things. I had low self-esteem and low self-confidence when it came to doing something that was outside of my box. Um, Even in college, I was 5 classes shy of my master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology. And 2 things happened. One, the project that I was going to have to do did not line up with my values and my beliefs. And I didn't see it as what I had signed up for. So that was one thing. The other thing was I didn't feel like I had enough understanding or abilities to successfully complete the project. So it was easier for me to drop than it was to do it and fail. All of that, 40 years from one statement. You have a lot of book sense, but not a lot of common sense. The other day, that statement popped up. Like I said, it's like 30 something years later. That statement popped up for me. And understanding my purpose to take all of my traumas and use them to birth new energy into my life so that I can progress my soul to the next stage. I looked at that statement and I said, common sense, because I know what book sense is. Common sense, we're all often taught that common sense ain't so common, or not everybody has common sense. And so I said, oh, I can't say the word, so I'll spell it. I said, hey, SIRI, because she'll start looking it up. What is common sense? And she said this long definition about how you think, how you process, how you view things, how you judge things, knowledge, and everything that is common to most people, or common for most people. And I said, I'm not common. I'm Foxy. I'm unique. The way I see the world is not the way other people see the world. My perspective on events and my perspective on knowledge, my perspective on life, my perspective on my soul's progression is not common. It's not what everybody else thinks. That is why people come to me and listen to me teach them different things. That's why I'm teaching myself, because I'm not common. I wasn't meant to be common. And in that moment, I said, oh my gosh, my mother was right. I have a lot of book sense, but I don't have common sense because I'm not common. And I am so happy that I'm not. That is what I'm talking about. When you can genuinely look at a traumatic event and birth new energy into that event and absorb that new energy where it merges the physical experience of having that comment made with the new energy of spiritually raising it to a new vibration so that it does something for me. It does something to benefit me where I am right now. I'm not common. Anybody who's ever been around me knows that I'm not common. I have never fit in with a group, except for the weirdos. I've never fit in with the status quo. I've never been good with groupthink. I've never been good with just following along and doing it like everybody else does it. My thought processes have been different than most people. And I would challenge everybody to not have common sense, because sometimes common sense is not the best sense there is. Change what's common and change it to what's more loving, more spiritual, more peaceful. That should be what's common. And that's our challenge. So, on nationalwellness.org, that's somewhere that you can go if you want to look at various dimensions of wellness. They have a whole website that is designed around wellness and what that means, how it's designed, how it's defined, um, ways that you can express wellness in your life. And I'm going to go through just some things that I've done in my life to bring wellness to me. Spiritually, I have chosen my own path of beliefs. I have chosen spirituality. I've chosen to reconnect with the Native American side of my legacy, of my lineage, of my generation of spiritual guides. Occupationally, I'm always going to be a nurse. I have tried to get out of nursing, and every time I try to get out of nursing, I find a new specialty in nursing that is like, oh, yeah, that's me, that's me, that's me. And so I'm always going to be a nurse. However, in being a nurse, I have choices. And I choose to do things in nursing that line up with my beliefs and my values. For instance, I work in emergency medicine because I believe that food should be our medicine first. I believe that people should be taught to use nutrition in addition to their medications so that eventually they can get off of those medications. I believe that people should be taught about how to eat, how to make food choices that are beneficial to their body. We have to take care of our body. That's another aspect of wellness. We have to listen to our bodies and give our bodies what it needs to be nourished, what it needs to be healthy, what it needs to get its own fountain of youth. So in emergency medicine, I give medicines that are emergent. I give medicines that are necessary for right now. And I'm okay with that. I can well with that. I can go home after work and say, I've done my job. I also deal with sexual assault. I talk about it, I read about it, I write about it, I take breaks from it. Yes, as healers, as people in the community, as servants of the community of the peace, we have to take a break. Um, I also got a therapist to help me with those things that are surrounding emotional areas of my life. Um, Emotionally, I sit with my emotions. I feel my emotions. I allow myself to create a safe space for me to be emotional and be okay with being emotional. I teach my children that it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to express your emotions. Um, I read books about those things, which leads us to the intellectual part. Challenge your mind. Do things that raise your awareness of certain knowledge. If there's something that you want to do, learn about it. edX.org is free education. Udemy is free, it's low cost education of different topics that you can learn about. Go to the library, pick up a book. If we weren't recording, I would walk you through the house and I would show you all the books that we have in this house. We have no space for sofas and stuff because we have so many books on so many different topics. Pick up a book, learn something new. My children I was telling them about crocheting as a child, and so they wanted to learn how to crochet. They got some yarn, they got a crochet needle, and they went to YouTube. And now they are starting their own business of crocheting hats and scarves and blankets, and they're amazing. They are amazing. They knit, they bought a loom, they learned how to do all these different things. Those are ways that you use these things to bring yourself into an expression of creativity, an expression of new energy that merges those things in the physical with those things spiritual. Um, Now, I cannot leave this without talking just a few moments about sexual trauma um, and sexual violence. And I wish I had my heart with me, but I guess that's why I don't have it. So, when we talk about sexual assault, many people don't talk about it, first of all. And when they do talk about it, they talk about it from a perspective of victim or survivor. When I speak of sexual assault, oftentimes you will hear me say people who have experienced sexual assault, because I feel that as someone who has had that experience, we are now warriors. There's a time when you're a victim, and I was a victim when it happened to me. I am a victim by law. There comes a time when you're a survivor, and that was a long period for me. That's those moments where you are trying to find your reality again, trying to hold on, trying to find your space in life again, trying to redefine who you are after this sexual assault, because it changes everything about you. It changes how you see the world, it changes how you feel, it changes how you have sex, it changes how you relate to other people, whether that's intimate, romantic, or on a friendship or a work related relationship. It changes everything, how you see everything. And it was a moment of surviving, of getting just from one moment to another, of surviving from being so depressed that I was suicidal to getting to a moment of I'm anxious because I'm scared of what's going to happen in the future. Just surviving those moments. Now I'm in a place of being a warrior. And what I mean by that is I'm in a place of being compassionate toward myself. If you're going to be a warrior, every person who has gone to war, they have to have compassion. They have to have something that that wells up inside of them, so that they can you bring me my heart, so that they can use that as motivation, as fuel to do what is necessary for them to do in order to come home, or do what is necessary for them to do in order for them to benefit the person that they're being compassionate about. For example, when we had 911, many people joined the military because they had compassion on their families, on the families of others, on the whole American people. And that compassion towards those people made them go across the ocean. Thank you, sweetheart. Made them go across the ocean and fight and do what was necessary. No one joined the military saying, well, I'm sure there were some, but ideally, their first thing wasn't, I'm going to join the military so that I can kill. The thing that came before so I can kill was the compassion they had on the people who had been killed. The thing that they didn't like. And this was their solution to do something about that. Now, when we talk about sexual trauma, for me, and I say for me because you can use it as an example, but please know that your journey with healing and bringing yourself to a state of wellness with sexual trauma will not be the same as mine. It will not be the same as the next person. So this is my heart. If everyone can see that, let me show it to the people over there and the people over there. Oops. So this is a blue apatite in the shape of a heart. It's very heavy. I bought this in a store. First, I left it in the store. I went to the car. I felt like, oh my gosh, I left it there. I got to go back. Went back, I got it, and I took it everywhere I went. If I got ready to go to the store, I get to the car, and it's like, go back and get it. So I have to go back and get it, bring it with me. I would put it in my purse. It's lugging me down, so I have to hold my purse differently. When I go to bed, I'd find that it was in the bed with me. I'd wake up, it was snuggled under me like a little baby. It would be under my pillow. It would be on the side of the bed. Everywhere I went, this heart was with me. And we were doing a session, and one of my friends, my mentors, they said, when you go to the cemetery, because I was supposed to go to the cemetery, don't be surprised if you're asked by the spirits to bury this heart. And I was like, do you know how much money I paid for this heart? I'm not putting this in the ground. I just paid somebody to take it out of the ground and shape it like this heart so that I could put it in my stone collection. I'm not putting it in the ground. So she said, well, I'm just saying. So as I got closer to the date to go, I gathered all of my sage and my fire and my herbs and my thought processes and the things that I wanted to allow this heart to absorb the trauma, the abandonment, the sadness, the depression, the anxiety, the self blame. I put all of that in the heart, and I set my intentions on burying it. The day that I was to go bury it, um, it was raining. Everything happened, and I didn't get to go. And so I was like, when I walked out of the hotel to finally got everything that I needed to go. I walked out of the hotel elevator and I looked through the lobby doors and it was pouring down rain. The sky was dark gray. And I said, I'm not going down a dirt road to bury this thing in the water. I'm going to get stuck. So in that moment, it left me. The urge and the need to bury it left me. And I realized it wouldn't be this hard if I was supposed to go. So why was there so much emphasis on carrying this everywhere I went, this heavy ass heart? And then there was a calmness that came over me. And it said, you just needed to get to a space where you were willing to do what was necessary to heal your trauma, to bring yourself to a place of wellness. And that's my question for you. Are you willing to do what is necessary? Are you willing to change your thought processes? Are you willing to dissect your beliefs? Are you willing to do what is necessary to bring yourself from being stuck in that trauma and allowing it to control every aspect of your life to being in a state of wellness? It doesn't mean you don't still have the trauma experience. It means that you are now learning how to birth new energy into those moments. And you're learning how to bring yourself from being in a state of continuous agony, continuously agonizing yourself with this traumatic event, to a point of being creative with those events, being creative and learning how to share this with someone else, learning how this little heart cost me a lot, just like my traumas cost me a lot. They cost me a lot of broken relationships. It cost me a lot of nights of crying until my eyes were slowed shut. It cost me a lot of not being able to do my work because I was crying so much or I was so depressed. It cost me a lot of wondering, how am I going to get this suicide done without my children finding me? It cost me a lot of journals, a lot of pens, a lot of friends. It cost me so much. And then I had to realize, am I willing to bury that? Am I willing to erase the definition of Foxy as someone who's been in a traumatic experience and recreate who that person is from scratch? Am I willing to release that? And I am. I am. And once I got to a place of being able to release it, there was a certain place of stillness within me. There was a certain place of peace. And for me, peace, if you ever get a chance to look at my logo, underneath the little butterfly, it says peace, pure energy, and creative empowerment. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to use pure energy and creative empowerment to facilitate other people's wellness as I facilitate my own. That is all I have today. Of course, there's more because I could talk for hours. However, Kira's given me one. Okay.
Oh my God, I could sit and listen and talk and just hang with you for days and days and days.
We're going to have to create a retreat where we can just sit around and talk and just hang out and have these moments of, what the hell? And, oh yeah.
I love this so much, Foxy. Thank you so much for being here and lending your time and energy and expertise and wisdom and really authentic love and connection that you have for the people that you work with and for the people that are in your sphere of influence, because we all feel it. You know, we really do. We feel, I can't speak for everyone, but I think they would agree, is just having your friendship and having your love in my life is probably one of the most important things to me. So I want to thank you for showing up in this world, in this life, considering all of the things that have happened, in a way that is full of integrity and full of peace. You know, it's so hard, and even as you were speaking, you know, I was thinking about, because I think that the majority of women in this life have had some kind of traumatic experiences, especially sexually, is why the Me Too movement happened.
Yes.
And so when I had been through so much trauma by the time I was raped in college that I almost dissociated so hard, because I was like, yeah, that seems like the next natural thing to happen to me. All right. Yeah, no, this seems right. Yeah. And it's you know, so it's kind of interesting how it all works together, and it's all good, and it's all for our good, and that's the thing I feel I hear from you the most.
Yes.
Is that everything is working, conspiring to our good, even if it doesn't feel good.
Exactly. I just read the book. I heard, I was listening to a video by Liz Dawn, and she mentioned Matt Kahn's book, The Universe Always Has a Plan. So I just did a book review for the book review club. It's called Book Review for the Soul. I just did a video on that. We were doing like a Zoom thing. Anyway, he was talking about how there are no mistakes, really. Like, you haven't done anything wrong, and neither has anyone else. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, what the hell are you talking about, Matt? Let me read that again. And I had to realize, no, even though I didn't like it, it's okay to dislike an experience. I didn't like that experience. Okay, that was weird. I didn't like that experience. Right? I didn't like that experience.
I can't hear you.
Oh no. No. Ah, shucks. Kira, we cannot be having this again. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me, Kira? Hello. Oh my gosh, today. Yeesh. Can you hear me? No? OMG. Audio. There we go. Now?
Janae is laughing.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna be cussing it a little bit. Like, I'm trying to hold it. Like,
Okay, let's see.
No? Oh my God.
So when we have technical issues, we do our very best to you know, get through them. So I think, let's see, hold on. I'm gonna just say a few things that I'm seeing in the comments while you're working on it.
Hello?
Let's see. So Nancy is saying, wow, I just talked to my therapist about this. Mine is more emotional. I'm sorry for what you both went through.
I'm so mad right now.
A lot of people
I told him.
I love your attitudes. You might be able to go out and come back. I'm going to remove you, and then we'll go from there. Let's see. Maybe if I add you to the stream again.
Hello? Damn it! Shit!
All right, that's okay. If you want to pop back out and come back when you can.
I'm on the wrong one. Where's Kira's? I told you.
A better place.
Hello?
Through her work and through her commitment. So I'm going to add her back just so she can say goodbye. Hopefully, we are be able to hear her.
You got me? Oh, damn, you lost me. What the hell? What the hell?
But I can still hear you.
Oh! Well, now they know I'm the same on camera and off camera. Damn it, there I am.
You got Foxy, you got Foxy. Well, let's see what Janae says. I love the example of just getting to the place of willingness to let go. That is huge.
Yes, that is.
Just the willingness. You know, I was talking to somebody recently and I said, you know, she said, well, are you willing to forgive? And I said, can I be willing to be forgiven?
We're going to put some more steps in between there.
Let's start. It's not me. It don't be all.
And you know, on the word of forgiveness, I have learned, I have come to a place of forgiving my stepfather, but it wasn't like most people think of forgiveness. It wasn't like, oh, it was okay. You know, I understand why he did it, blah, blah, blah. No. I still hold him accountable for what the hell he did. However, for me, I forgive myself for allowing those emotions to control my life for so long and allowing that trauma to affect me for so long. That's my forgiveness. He'll, whatever.
So, what are some final things? And then I've given them your website for them to connect with you. And any last words for our friends here?
I would just say learn. Well, not really learn, because that's like you got to take a pen and a paper. Journaling is good. Meditation is good. Mindfulness is great. Loving yourself is best. That's what I'll say. Loving yourself is best. We have to come to a place of loving ourselves just like we love other people. It's easy to love everybody and hug them and give them good words of affirmation and tell them how wonderful they are, and then look in the mirror and we can pick out every blemish, every shortcoming. We have to give ourselves the same love that we give to everybody else.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. And I just want to take a moment. Foxy mentioned Liz Dawn. I just want to take a moment. We are both so incredibly grateful to Liz Dawn Donahue from Celebrate Your Life for sharing the message today, Voices of Wisdom. Thank you so much for being someone who's always contributing to having voices be heard in this field.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. Oh, so excited.
Foxy, you stick with me because I still want to talk to you for a few minutes because I want to talk to you.
Okay, sugar. I want to talk to you too.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Please join us again tomorrow. We're going to have another episode, and I cannot wait to spend more time with our friends.
Yes.
All right, everyone, take care. Have a beautiful day. If you need anything from Foxy, go to ispeakfoxy.com and connect.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye, y'all. Yes, they can. I gotta go. I gotta stop going live right here. Bam. Now you gotta stop that one. Hey, bye. Toodles. Y'all can't be in this combo.